Assalamualaikum to our lecturer, Sir Izdihar. Today, we will present to you about prospect of economic integrations between Singapore and Malaysia toward an Asian economic powerhouse. So, in our team, me, myself, Nurul Fadila binti Muhammad Saleh, and I have Nur Hasha Hanani binti Muhammad Syarif. So, for introductions, since the Asian financial crisis of 1997, Malaysia has faced economic challenges, resulting in a decline in its regional standing. Currently, the fourth largest economy in ASEAN, Malaysia aims to revitalize its economic position through closer integrations with Singapore. The goal is to surpass Thailand and become the second largest economy in ASEAN. Inspired by successful model like the European Union, the proposal envisions a strategic partnership with Singapore to stimulate economic growth by emulating the EU's commitment to common policies and collaborative decision making. The aim is to transform the region and elevate both Malaysia and Singapore to greater economics dominance in Southeast Asia. Move on to Harsha.
My name is Norhasha Hanani, and I will start my part of the presentation. So, I will talk about the challenges for Malaysia and Singapore and the economic integration to resolve these challenges. So, the first challenge is actually um, done because of Thailand's multi-billionaire project. So why is this a challenge? Because this actually provides an alternative Asia Pacific India Middle East trade route because this project is, as you can see in the picture, it provides a land bridge between Ranong Port to Chumpon Port, and this project actually bypasses the Strait of Malacca. So to the next slide. To understand why this is a challenge, we have to first see the importance of the Strait of Malacca to Malaysia and Singapore. So, as we all know, Malaysia and Singapore are very successful in export trading and their maritime sectors, primarily due to their strategic geological location, which is between the Indian and Pacific Ocean. So, the Strait of Malacca actually connects the two oceans through the South China Sea, which has been so important historically until now for trade. Up to the present, the Strait of Malacca has been recognized to be one of the busiest and used strait as it has more than 80,000 ships using it for international navigation yearly. The Strait of Malacca is prominent as a shipping trade route that is responsible for more or a quarter of the world's trades. Next slide, please. So, how does this project actually affects Malaysia and Singapore? So, there are three main things causes uh that causes the effects towards Malaysia and Singapore. The first is that because of the land bridge, it actually reduces shipping time by 6 to 9 days. The second reason is that it reduces about 15% of the shipping costs. And it is also predicted that half of the ships will use the new route instead of using the traditional route, which is through the Strait of Malacca and passes through ports, Singapore and Malaysian ports. So the traffic volume of the project is expected to exceed the Selat Malaccas by 2030, and the new route promises smoother good flow. This can negatively affect the operations of major ports in Malaysia, such as Port Klang, Port Kuantan, and Port Tanjung Pelepas, as shipping companies might not opt to the new ports in Thailand. So, what is the statistics to prove this? Well, Malaysia and Singapore are very important, are very highly exporting countries. You can see this by looking at Singapore's trade to GDP ratio in 2022, which is 336.86%. Malaysia trade to GDP GDP ratio in 2022 was 147%. Another statistics to prove the importance of trading in both Singapore and Malaysia is that 90% of Malaysia's export is transported by ships, and that the maritime industry contribute about 40% of the country's GDP. These statistical figures highlights the importance of trade in both Malaysia and Singapore. Thus, the alternative route might cause a drop in trades and loss in GDP. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'll talk about how to address this challenge through economic integration while looking at Model EU, which is the European Union. So, firstly, in EU, we can see that they adopted single internal market. The EU implements a single internal market for goods, promoting seamless trade between member countries. They also have many bilateral agreements, which enhances economic cooperation within the countries that are in EU. They also agree to free movement, where the EU citizens they are able to study, work, live, and retire in any of their member states. Another thing that the EU has done is that they have a unified internal market, which promotes the free movement of goods, services, capital, and human capital. Besides that, they also remove trade barriers by giving elimination to technical, legal, and bureaucratic barriers for smoother trade and business activities. And lastly, because of the harmonization of regulations and the elimination of trade barriers, it actually leads to the cost reductions and better trade between the countries and increase their competitiveness in world trades. So, how can Malaysia and Singapore uh, model EU with this? So, first, we can follow EU's step, which is to harmonize our regulations, remove trade barriers, and eliminate technical, legal, and bureaucratic obstacles to enhance free trade. Malaysia and Singapore can also increase the number of bilateral agreements that they have with each other. In 2022, Malaysia and Singapore were each other's second largest trading partners, with bilateral trade reaching 83.53 billion. If we have more bilateral trade agreements, this can be increased even more, and maybe we can be each other's largest trading partners. So, besides that, the 37.6% growth in 2022 compared to 2021 indicates the potential for future economic growth through integration. This is based on the statistics I gave earlier about the bilateral trade reaching 83.53 billion. So, Malaysia and Singapore can also follow EU in a way that they have integration, which allows exploration of joint infrastructures, investments, or enhancements such as ports, transport, and transportation network. So, these joint initiatives can help improve the ports and trade routes and can make Malaysia and Singapore more competitive than other regional players, or in our case, Thailand. And besides that, Malaysia and Singapore can also collaborate on research and knowledge sharing and also technology transfer, which actually enhance competitiveness between for the countries and their competitions. It is also said that Malaysia and Singapore should explore their value added services like rebanding, relabeling, and repacking at their ports to improve the port's efficiency in terms of service. So, ships might opt to Malaysia and Singapore ports more than Thailand, so that because of our service. Okay, next slide, please. Now I'll pass the presentation to my friend Fadila.
So the second challenge for Malaysia and Singapore economic integration for resolving challenge is a foreign direct investment for Malaysia, Singapore against Thailand. So this is a key indicator in the second quarter 2023. It's shown that the FDI inflow for Malaysia is at a level of severe decline, which is more than 5% decline in growth rate compared to the previous quarter. So Singapore and Thailand, on the other hand, are at the worsening level, which is a 0 to 5% decline in change in growth compared to the last quarter. So this is the statistical evidence of the problem. As you can see, the schedule here and the FDI figure at the second quarter 2023. Singapore have 6171.3 million US, followed by Thailand 4009.3 million, and Malaysia 3202.0 million US. But I mark here that Singapore in behind Indonesia. There's 4 largest FDI figures in ASEAN. So intra-ASEAN FDI inward flow by host country, attractiveness ranking, which is Thailand, considered more attractive within ASEAN for investment. Malaysia ranked lower, indicating lower attractiveness, and Singapore behind Indonesia, suggesting room for improvement and attractiveness for ASEAN FDI. So the implications: Thailand's appeal evidence from higher FDI figures, positioning it as a more attractive investment destinations. Malaysia challenge, experiencing a decline at and least attractive within ASEAN, highlighting challenges. And Singapore potential, despite being behind Indonesia, still a significant player with potential for improvement. So in conclusions, ASEAN economic landscape, collaborative effort between Singapore and Malaysia are crucial. So by addressing challenges can strengthen their position in the Asian economic landscape. So by addressing challenge 2, through economic integration with model EU. In the model of the European Union, the EU has made a major step in economic integration with the establishment of the Economic and Monetary Union, EMU. EMU engaged in the coordinations of economic and fiscal policies, a common monetary policies, and a common currency. The economic integration between Malaysia and Singapore can model the EU in the sense of coordinating the monetary policy between the two countries. Harmonizing monetary policies can promote economic. Malaysia-Singapore economic integration model. By monetary policy coordinations, coordinate monetary policies for economic stability and growth. It can potential competitive advantage over Thailand, and advantages of coordinated monetary policy is first, stable exchange rate, which is it can improve stability, reduce currency volatility, and attractive to investors seeking a stable currency. Second, inflation management. Joint efforts to maintain prices and reduce inflationary pressures and attract investors by avoiding high inflation risk. And the last one, reduce speculative activities, which is stability, discourage speculative activities in currency market, and the benefits, international trade and business predictability. So addressing challenge 2, by effective communication and collaboration is needed, because can start with just collaborations of monetary policy first before adoptions of common currency. This was similar to the Act of the European Monetary System, EMS, which was the stepping stone of the adoptions of the single currency to euro. When the stability of currency is at the promising rate, Malaysia, Singapore can look into the conversions to the single currency. Effective communications and collaborations is needed for the success of these works. And proof of this can be seen as the euro is the second most important currency in the international monetary system. So the impact on foreign direct investment, it can boost in FDI and growth GDP because in FDI, it can stable exchange rate, inflation control, and reduce speculation at attract investor and link to the higher growth rates and improve financial market development. While growth in GDP, it can increase FDI, contributes to GDP in both Malaysia and Singapore, and position both countries competitively against Thailand. So in conclusion, strategic economic integrations, it can coordinate monetary policies as a key step, potential pathway to a single currency, and positive impact on FDI GDP and overall economic competitiveness. Move on to the next presenter.
Okay, now I'll talk about the benefits of Malaysia and Singapore integration. So the first benefit is the increase of GDP growth. So what factors can lead to Malaysia-Singapore integration to get GDP growth? Well, firstly, we know that Malaysia has a greater GDP growth rate compared to Singapore. While Singapore has a very advanced IT and is among the best in Asian, it is actually the 14th most best for IT in the world. So, Malaysia can get investors of their because of their high GDP growth, while Singapore can get this opportunity to get more investors, in return for, in exchange for their high knowledge on IT. So, with this, it can increase the GDP growth. So, quoted, it is easy to carry out joint infrastructure development. So, how do we actually increase the GDP growth? We improve the connectivity and facilitate the movements of goods and people. For example, the long planned Kuala Lumpur Singapore high speed train. The Kuala Lumpur Singapore high speed train HSR is a planned railway for Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Singapore via a high-speed rail line. So, how does this affect the both countries? Not only will it increase the job opportunities, it can reduce the employment rate, um, have a political stability, and also increases the GDP for individual countries. I'll pass it to the next presenter.
So the second benefit is information technology and resources exchange. Okay, why is important of IT and resource to be exchanged between these two countries? Because Singapore is known for its great information technology, as Harsha mentioned before, is a 14th among the world. So Malaysia is the largest exporter of electrical component in the chain. So the weakness and the strength of both countries complement each other shortcomings. And with this exchange can strengthen the country's economy to surpass Thailand economy. So how the exchange can make a difference in the economy? At first, the exchange can educational resources, training programs, and skill development initiative. It can help both countries build a skilled workforce capable of meeting uh, uh, the growing demands for the IT industry. And the second one is increase international competitiveness. Through a synergetic IT sector, it can increase the international competitiveness of both Malaysia and Singapore. And that's why the integration can benefit both countries. In conclusions, according to the Organizations of Economic Cooperation and Development, the ocean contribution approximately 1.5 trillion US annually to the overall world economy, and this may more than double by 2030. If Malaysia and Singapore undergo economic integrations, it can help both countries to stay competitive and reap the benefits of the future expanded market in terms of trading. Besides that, the economic integrations of Malaysia and Singapore can also increase the foreign direct investment flow for future development, research, and new collaboration between the two countries. Through integration, we can see the combined economy of both Malaysia and Singapore can overcome Thailand economy if this integration happen. So from our point of view, problem in doing the integration will arise, but the existence of the EU model itself can be overcome by taking steps from the beginning. This integration can achieve a strong economic power to overcome Thailand and able to surpass the Asian chart in monopolizing the economy. And with this benefit like increased economic growth and information technology and resources exchange, like we mentioned before, we believe this integration can be achieved not only in the short term, but also in the long term. So that's all from us. Thank you.
Thank you.